What's going on, stream? Welcome to a StarCoding adventure. Today we got some fun things planned. Here, we'll switch to the face real quick for a sec. Today we are entering the realm of Django. We're entering the realm of web apps, and we're going to try to deploy a local Django Python web app to Azure. That is essentially the challenge we're trying to do tonight. Why? Why not, ladies and gentlemen? We're cloud engineers. We just made a super cool project. Not really. We have a sample project. But in theory, we have a very cool project that we want our friends to be able to go and witness as well, not just us on our local machine. Because I can run this on my local machine. It's connected to a Postgres SQL database on the back end. And I can navigate whatever on my local host, but if I want to put this on the internet, if I want to make it publicly accessible, I need to go to a cloud hosting provider. Maybe Microsoft, maybe AWS, maybe Google, maybe Heroku. There's some other platforms out there, but needless to say, I need to put it on a server and expose it to the internet. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to kind of go through that process. I think that this is it's an advanced process, and I feel like for me, when I was in school, when I was making this stuff locally, it was all fun and games. But the second I made something that was publicly accessible and on the internet through a cloud hosting provider, I don't know, it just felt like I leveled up in my programming skills, and I hope to help everyone that's watching level up their programming skills. So that's what we're going to do today. It's always stressful streaming, because here I am talking, and then, like, you know, how does that sound to y'all? Who knows until at the end. But I think we're going to be okay. I think it's going to be good. Let's start with what we're trying to do here. So, we have a tutorial we're going to be following. Deploying a Python, Django, or Flask web app to Azure with Postgres SQL. You know, typical two-tier application. We can kind of see that we have the internet on the left-hand side, communicating with our Azure app, and we're going to be inside a virtual network that's connecting to a Postgres SQL database. For those that watched my internet or my video on virtual networks, you know, this is why we have a virtual network, so that we're not exposing our Postgres SQL database to the internet. It's just the web app. Very cool stuff. And, you know, Microsoft does a lot of things interesting. Some things are right, some things are wrong. I do love the documentation they have for cloud development. However, you know, I was looking at PowerShell documentation the other day. Absolutely nothing. Absolutely atrocious. You're not going to find jack squat on PowerShell. But if you want to deploy something in the cloud, oh, dude, Microsoft has a document for you. And so we're just going to be walking through this project. You know, we're going to be, I guess, downloading sample code. We already got that downloaded. We've already got the configuration set up. Already got a local Postgres server set up, and we're going to show that in a sec. What's going to get interesting, what we're going to really be showing, is the creation of all these cloud services, and then deploying the code on those cloud services. So that is going to be the challenge of today's live stream. So this is a Django application. We're in Visual Studio Code. For people that don't know, this is Visual Studio Code. And, you know, Django projects, they have a similar structure. They all kind of come, you know, within some stuff. A lot of this is Azure specific things and Docker things, but let's just look at what we got going on. So we got a startup.sh. Honestly, couldn't tell you what startup.sh is doing. I'm sure it'll come into play at some point, but for a Django application that's out of the box, I don't think this is going to be important. We have a screenshot of what our sample application is going to look like, and you can see it's kind of something to do with restaurant reviews. Okay, cool. That's just something that we can work with. Great. We got a requirements.txt file. This is going to be all of our dependencies that, you know, are used throughout the Django application. So we have Django and some .env, which is using environment stuff. I have no idea where we're going to be using this this guy. No idea what that binary does, as well as white noise, but it's a part of the sample project. Let's go. And this is a great README for our GitHub, so when someone goes and views the repository, they can have a nice little tutorial of how to run this and what it does. Always make a README, guys, okay? Don't be lazy. Do not skip out on the README, because if someone ever looks at your project, give them a clear idea of how to use it, okay? It's just great. We got our manage.py, which is essentially what we're gonna... It's the heart of a Django project, I guess. You usually just call manage.py with some type of command line argument, and then that command line argument gets executed, essentially. And I think if we, looked at the code, it would maybe seem that way. I'm trying to look for where that code is at. So we have main, comes into main. We come in here, and essentially we're going to execute from command line our system.arg. So whatever argument we pass, it's going to launch a command that's given to it, and that's all you need to know about that. There's some license stuff here. The MIT license, great stuff. Got to make that stuff open source, baby. Yeah, contributions, change logs, yada yada yada. Azure.yaml, this will probably come into a big play later into the video and the live stream. I don't know exactly what's going to be going in here, but this is essentially what's going to tell Azure what to run once the code is uploaded, and how the code will get uploaded to Azure as well. Git ignore, this is just going to stop, random things from getting added to GitHub, stuff that's not needed. I don't want to deploy, junk and secrets. That's a lot of network connectivity if you have to deploy a lot of stuff. So, and then we have our sample env. This is like the stuff that's running locally on my computer. So you can see we have a database called Django, localhost, users Postgres, and the passwords, sample password. So if I actually came in here and typed in, I think it's, oh my goodness, VS Code, come to me, baby. Let's go. And I'm sorry that, I think if you're looking at the screen right now, it's actually like kind of cropped a little bit, just for, privacy stuff. I don't want to DOS myself. Just the top of the screen and the bottom of the screen are a little cropped out, one could say. So I'm kind of being conscious of making sure I'm not getting anything there. But yeah, let's log into Postgres. I think it's actually going to be, what is it? PS SQL, kind of like that. PS SQL, and then -u Postgres is the user, and that password sample password. For people that haven't used Postgres before, which honestly is kind of me as well, the commands are very interesting. We can log in. This -l is showing all the databases that are on my local Postgres server. Some came automatically, I think Postgres, and dude, when I got it, these two templates were here, so I was like, cool, nice. But we actually want to just look inside that Django one, and I think it's just C to, yes, go into Django. So we're logged into our Django database, and I think if we do DT, yes, DT will list all of our schemas / tables. I want to say these are just all the tables, but the ones that are important down here. I couldn't tell you exactly what all of these are doing, but the sample project, baby. These are going to be the two ones that we are going to be using the most. So that's cool. That is Postgres. And let's actually run this guy. So python manage.py, like I said, this is the manage. Nice. And it's going to be, run server. That's the command to run the server. It's loading the environment files, and we have a nice server made. So here we go, sample server. Let me zoom in a little bit. Nothing crazy. I think we have a restaurant named Hello World with no ratings, and there's some details. There's a details page, and we can add reviews. So I can add a new restaurant. Let's call it Rest 2 something. Nice. Sweet. And that is the application. I think there's like adding this review here, so I can just be like, my name's Jake, and I gave this a 5-star review because it's freaking awesome, bro. It's freaking crazy good. That I need an Italian reference, dude. I need just like my mom's spaghetti. Nice. There we go. I think I probably butchered the spelling of spaghetti, but there we go. There we go, guys. This is the application, the sample application running locally, and we want to get this to run on the Azure cloud. So that is what we're going to be doing. So there's a couple more things probably want to show before we move forward. Okay, yeah, we're good. I was making sure, like, I was like, wait, am I, like, in the public repository? Because I saw all the contributors down here. But yes, this was forked, and this was published in my own repository, and we have all our files here. We're going to be using these GitHub actions to, you know, make these, you know, actions that will push our code from on local machine to cloud. So that's going to be interesting as well. So that is that. And let's dive into what it's going to take to make this thing work. So if we look at the tutorial, we're just going to follow line by line with the tutorial. Nothing crazy. Because that way, you know, we have a clear game plan and it'll be fun. It's late. Don't want to mess things up. I think for the most part, you know, we have everything running locally. So it's time to create our Azure resources as the blueprint before putting it, or before deploying the code. So there's going to be a couple things we got to make. Nice. But yes, we now are logged into the Azure portal, and we're not showing anything too much, which is cool. There's some email addresses involved that we don't want to show. So we got to make that resource group. We got to make a container for our web app that we're going to be doing. So let's do that. Let's create a resource group. We have an Azure for Students subscription, so that way we can kind of, you know, piggyback off Azure and not have to spend money out of pocket, because what you're about to see is that some things are actually pretty expensive to deploy on the cloud. So let's name it just Django Deploy. Django Deploy, it's going to be the East region. We're going to put some tags on this guy, just so when I'm looking back, I can make sure that everything that was related to this project I can quickly go ahead and delete, and that way nothing leaks, no money leaks out of the account pretty much. So we're making a resource group. This shouldn't take too long. Bada bing, bada boom. Now we're going to make that virtual network. This is going to give us some private IPs to kind of make our little space, our little own intranet in the cloud. All right, subscription Azure for Students, going to keep that the same. Django Deploy. I think we can get away with doing one little zoom in here. Django Deploy. We're going to call this virtual network the Django VNet. Nothing crazy. Still in the East region. Then we'll go to the IP page. This is going to give us our private IPs, the size of our intranet. Can't remember off the top of my head. Yeah, there we go. 6,500 addresses. Way more than we need, but I want to say having a virtual network is free for the most part, using it. So shouldn't be too big of a deal having that big of a space. And we have one default subnet. Yeah, very cool, very cool. Can't say anything there. Bastion host, just a way to connect to stuff within the VNet. We're just gonna have that disabled. All this stuff is just icing on the cake. Not needed for a deployment environment. We'll come down here, do that project, and make it equal to Django. Review and create. So this is all manual. You'll know there's like a lot of clicking going on. There are ways to automate this process, which actually exist within the code base. There was like an infra section with like this bicep code, which could also be Terraform, which could also be Ansible if those software products mean anything to you. But for this video, we're just going to walk through making it manually. I feel like when everyone's making that first cloud deployment, it's probably going to be a manual thing without the automation of, you know, Terraform or something like that. And that just leaves room for another video on how to do the same thing with infrastructure later. So stick around for a future video with that. So now we have our virtual network created. Very cool, very cool. Let's make a DNS zone as well. Let's just get this all out of the way. Resource groups, you're going to be going to the Django deploy. And instance details, this is going to be the Django Postgres deployment, you know, like, let's see here, must be between, gonna be underscores, is that a thing? .com. Nice, that's what I needed. And I was like, what does it need? Alright, Django Postgres deployment.com. Very cool. We'll call it just to give it something more meaning. Give it a little bit more meaning there. It can be anything. Don't overthink the steps. Project, Django. Alright. Private DNS zone created. We are on a roll, guys. We're just storming through this like no one's business. And I think let's go ahead and make that web app. So we're going to make an app service plan. And an app service plan is literally just, you know, like the infrastructure. Like, you know, how many CPU cores, how much RAM is this guy going to have? You're basically like renting out a space in a data center. And that's what your app service plan is like. Your plan is to take over 2 nodes of ours, and this is how much we're going to charge you. And it's really cool because you can make this app service plan and host multiple things on the app service plan. So let's get into making this. We're going to make it as cheap as possible because I'm a broke boy, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a broke boy. It's going to be the Django app plan. Nothing crazy there. It's going to be Linux, East US, free, shared infrastructure. That's actually very cool. I didn't know you could, 60 CPU minutes, day included. Okay, well, we're actually going to use our basic B1, and we're going to delete it tonight. So it should only cost like $1 at the end of the day. Let's go, yeah, disable the zone redundancy. Let's make the project Django, and we're going to make this app service plan B1. So we have basic 1.7 gigabytes of memory. It should be good enough. Beautiful. And we can slowly see our resources popping up, which is very fun. If I refresh, did that app service plan get made? It did. So now we're ready to make an app service. Might be easier to come up here and do app services. There we go. This is going to be that Django deploy. Web app name is going to be our Django web app. And this is going to be... It could be a Docker container, it could be code. Let me just check this tutorial and see if they had anything in mind. Nice. The only reason why I'm a little scared at this part is because we do have this Docker file, some Docker stuff here, so I am thinking it might be a Docker deploy instead of just code based. We can always come back and hit this guy later if it ends up being something different. So we'll do StarCoding. That should be a unique name. Do code. It's going to be Python 10. And if it breaks, we'll come back and fix it. And this part of the YouTube video will definitely be not added. Okay. This looks good. Deployment. We're going to enable this. And we're going to select the Django deploy tutorial. And it's going to be on branch main. And we're going to have a nice frickin' file that's going to be added to build. Which is cool about Azure. I mean, I wanted this continuous integration. This is what's going to essentially, every single time that I make a change to my branch, my main branch, so I can make changes locally when I push up to GitHub, this continuous integration, continuous deployment will essentially just run this code, this workflow, and push those changes onto the web app that exists. So we'll copy this. I think it should automatically deploy that. We will see we have it copied if it does not. Public access, cool. Enable network injection off. Monitoring, no. Don't need that. Django. Very cool. After this, we should have almost all. We still need the Postgres server up and running, so that'll be fun. While that's doing that, we'll go into Postgres database for SQL flexible servers. And guys, Postgres databases, any database in general, it's not cheap. It's not cheap, guys. As soon as you press freaking yes, I want a database. Oh man. Yeah, and that's like a continuous thing too. If you're like starting a business, like that database is with you for life. It's kind of crazy how expensive they can get. So we're gonna minimize this cost as much as possible. This is the Django Postgres DB. There's no way that no one has ever taken this name before. Holy smokes, that's crazy. This is going to be for development. And so we said, yes, I want development, and it kind of gave us this very, very reasonable price. Storage is free up to 32 gigabytes, free up to, 750 hours. So that's cool. We can basically use this for a couple days and not get charged. I love it. We do not want high availability. That's going to probably up the price. How much is that? Yeah, just twice. Okay, very cool. We do not want that though. And we're going to make an authentication through Postgres. You can see here there's three options. We're just going to make an admin user. We're going to do that Postgres. And the password is going to be sample _ password. I think I need a character. Sample password 1. Very cool. And is that the last stage? Next is networking. It's going to be a private access. And that's why we made these the virtual network. So we don't need to give it an IP address. We can do the VNet integration. And we're going to use our virtual network that we already made. We're going to use that default subnet. Cool. And we're gonna give that private DNS name post that we just made. That was that Django Postgres DB. Well, actually, that's just our name. I think we can just use Django deploy. Can I not? Huh. Well, we'll use this new one. I do not know why I cannot use my old one, but oh well. You know, if I had my own custom keys, we could do something with that, but we're just using, you know, the Azure keys that they provide, and we're going to do that project Django. So hopefully, for anyone that's, you know, not used the cloud too often, not used Azure too often, you can kind of see how easy it is to just, you know, rack up a bill and go in debt. It's pretty nice, but no, it's actually super easy to just get a project off the ground using the cloud. You can just keep going. What is going on, stream? Hello, we are deploying some code, a Django application, into the cloud tonight. All is going well. We're making progress. We're making our resources right now. And once this final Postgres database is complete, we can shift our attention to getting the code to deploy on the machines, which is always the complicated and fun part. It usually involves a lot of waiting. So I'm hoping we can get in like a 1 or 2 tries without messing up too much. So now that we have all this stuff, I think we're just going to wait for that Postgres guy to do his thing. But in the meantime, we can still look back at this tutorial, because I think this is where some stuff is going to get interesting. So that workflow file that we looked at earlier, apparently it should be in a file called GitHub Workflows. So let's double check that. Let's go to GitHub here. Let's see, and it was updated 4 minutes ago. So we have this guy that was just uploaded, which should contain all the code necessarily to deploy our app. Oh man, I just got blurry all of a sudden. But this should essentially start our application. So let's look at it real quick. This is giving our server commands to run. And we're saying on push branch, we're going to launch this guy. So every time we push to the main branch, this is going to run. And as a job, as a build job, and as a deploy job. So in the build job, it's going to run on the latest edition of Ubuntu. And set the Python version, and it's just going to, you know, basically install Python 3.10. It's going to make a virtual environment. That's pretty cool. It's going to install those dependencies with pip install, you know, requirements.txt for, you know, we were looking at that file earlier. What was that? Requirements.txt right here. So it's going to install those dependencies, and then it's going to build the application and publish it as a artifact, and it's going to have that name, and that is going to be interesting. That's the interesting part. I have actually not ever deployed a Django application, so the fact that it's going to build an artifact, and it's going to have the name Python app, that's cool. Okay, and then we're going to come down here to this deploy job. This is a separate job, and it should use this Python app to deploy, as we can see here. So it uses, you know, download artifact, the name's Python app, very cool, and it's going to deploy to an Azure web app. So all this stuff, yeah, very nice, and it knows to publish it to my app service with this, you know, secret down here. So that is that workflow file that just got added. So that's cool. And if I go to actions, do I kind of see Azure CLI? Heck yeah. I mean, it settles to success, guys. It settles to success. I'm scared to click this browse button because I feel like it had to break. It should have broken on creation. But we'll browse and see what happens. As you can see, we're loading up Django Web App StarCoding. Very cool. That shouldn't work. There's a reason why it shouldn't work. And that is because, first off, the Postgres just doesn't work. And I think it needs a little bit of environment variables before it's going to work as expected. And I think the one thing that we need to add to this guy is a configuration variable. So our Postgres guy is alive, and it should have a connection string added to it. Sometimes it's right here, but sometimes it's also in, connection strings. So let's use connection string here. Very nice. Postgres, your password, and we can put that in there. Yeah, it should be good. And if we look, the reason why it needs this connection string, if we look in, I want to say, the jams are jamming right now. There we go. So there was a production.py environment here that is essentially looking for some environment variables. Website hostname, that should be created automatically once our server was deployed, but this Azure Postgres connection string needs to be added to our database. I'm actually curious if I follow this link. Is that the same? So it's going to be, I think it might be this one. Simply because this keyword value connection string, keyword a value. So I think that, when I'm looking at all the types of connection strings, this one makes the most sense for what we're going to be using. So we're not going to use this value. We're going to come to our web app, and we're going to make a configuration variable. Alright, there we go. Now we have a connection string that's chilling. That's cool. Let me do a control, just want to make sure that we spelled this guy correctly. So let's just go to edit. Once you make one mistake deploying an application and you have one typo that just left you in a headache for 30 minutes, you make sure that your typos are non-existent. Copy and pasting all the way instead of typing it out. But I just want to look back at this tutorial here and see if there's anything that we might be missing. So we had this deployment, we made all these things. Verify connection strings, we went to the app service, we made this Azure Postgres SQL connection string. Very cool. Deploy the sample code. I think it was this one. So we had our builds and our deploy. And we got green check marks. So the code should be there on this machine. So we're going to SSH and run that Python manage. And I guess that would be a way of knowing. You know, just SSHing into the web app as well, instead of going to a URL. So this guy's restarting, but we should be able to SSH into the machine. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and I have interesting news. I am wondering if this SSH guy is going to work out of the box with the web app. You know, it is kind of counterintuitive. We know we have this SSH item to select on our web app, and we can click it, we can go to it. However, we can try to do a quick Google search to see if it's possible. So let's try doing a quick Google search. We'll bring this down real quick. So we'll do like Azure. Yeah, so this is involving a Docker container now, which makes sense, you know, having SSH service started on the Docker container. So what I'm thinking is, instead of going into the Docker file, because this is a live stream and we want to get this kind of done quick, you know, it talked about here using the out-of-the-box solution, Web App Plus database, on the marketplace. And what I think is that if we create a new web app out of the box, it's going to come with that SSH pre-configured. So honestly, like, I was like, oh wow, I can SSH in, that's great. It doesn't seem like it's going to be like that way out of the box. There might be some extra settings that we need to set in order to SSH defaultly, but let's use this web app here and see what happens. So we're going to use the basic plan. Still going to use the tags for, you know, Project Django. And we're going to let this guy do its thing. So this is going to probably take 5-6 minutes to complete its thing. Nope, did not finish. Still waiting for that one deployment to finish up. Well, in the meantime, we should be able to go to our deployment center. We'll do GitHub, and we'll do the same repository. And so we just pushed a change. So remember when we save that, we're actually making a workflow file, a YAML file. And the previous one we had was this main Django web app, StarCoding.yaml, but now the one that we care about is this one right here. So that should correlate to... Just wanted to cancel those two that were running, so that way we can free up the one that actually matters. And the cool thing about pipelines is we can actually come in here and see the live deploy. Which, by the way, this deploys way quicker than a React or an Angular application. Oh my god, those take forever. Alright. So we are now good to go, potentially. We have ourselves a new Postgres database. Oh wow, it actually like made a nice. Well, there you go. Since we did that auto deploy with the so I knew it was doing some crazy things behind the scenes that maybe it didn't necessarily show. But since we use this creation wizard, which is coming up, since we use this like create web app plus database creation wizard, it seems like it already made a couple things for us, like that connection string, which is cool. Didn't know that was going to be there. Oh, holy smokes, it just took an eternity to run. Oh my god, but we're there. Look at that, guys. An SSH window. That's actually crazy. So we're in this www root guy. We have a... So we have hosting start. So I'm having high doubts that the code actually deployed to this machine correctly. Oh, it actually hasn't yet. Wait. What? Does that make sense, though? Essentially, we tried to look at code that was on the SSH machine, and I was like, where is all the Django files? Django files were not successfully deployed. It was in that pending state. And usually it should not take that long. I feel like it got hung up on something. Probably because we restarted the machine when we edited like a config variable. And it just threw the whole pipeline off. So what I'm hoping is, now that we're back, this should only take, you know, like 3 minutes to get done. Oh, successful deploy. Holy smokes. Trial and error. That actually has me pretty hyped, dude. So we have some successful pushes. So now if we SSH into this guy, hopefully we'll be able to migrate on the server and see our Django files. And I see, yeah, see manage.py right here. So that means that we actually got our Django files deployed. And I was able to connect to the Postgres database and actually push those tables. So that's good. So if we go to our Postgres guy, being dyslexic this late at night, but it's all good. Should be able to go to databases, and there should be a Django database. Can I check it out? Question mark. Well, we can see it. I was hoping I'd be able to click in and see the information, but oh well. What happens if I go to this guy? Nice. It actually is our Django application. And if I add some sort of restaurant here, see if that persisted. It did. Wow. Holy smokes, ladies and gentlemen, it took long enough, but it looks like we got our Django application deployed on the cloud. Guys, that's going to do it for the stream tonight. Thank you all who stuck around to watch. We now got our local Django app deployed to the cloud, so great stuff. We're going to come over here and actually just delete the resource group, so that way we don't get charged money overnight. But that will do it for me, ladies and gentlemen. I think we'll probably do something with Terraform coming up, just so we can do this automatically without having to click on a bunch of buttons. So, take care. Enjoy the week. I'll see you all next time. Peace.